I'm going to do a video about church security. So who am I and why am I even qualified to talk about church security? Well, that's for you to decide. I'm just some random guy on the internet. I've said that in other videos. I've been a cop for 29 years, mostly patrol, but I've got military background as well, military law enforcement. And probably since about 2012-ish, I've also been a field training officer, a control tactics instructor, a use of force instructor. I also teach taser, baton, etc. And I think I have something to offer to the subject. But if you are interested in church security in general, there's one channel on YouTube that very much jumps out to me, and I'm a big fan of the channel. It's Christian Warrior. That is the go-to, probably the best resource on YouTube. That guy has an extensive background in law enforcement to include SWAT and gang task force, and he is definitely a strong, devout Christian. But because I'm an instructor, field training, control tactics, use of force, I think I have a lot to offer. And why do I think that? Because of most church security issues you're going to run into are not going to be your active duty, gunning and running type scenario. Heaven forbid that ever happens. Can it happen? Absolutely. If you watch the news, you know it can happen. So what are we going to cover? First of all, non-denominational, super basic discussion about church security needs and concerns. I'm Christian. Does not matter if you're Jewish or Christian or what have you, Buddhist. It doesn't matter. You go to a place of faith and worship, you should feel safe, and that's what we're talking about. The church that I'm going to right now does not have a security team whatsoever. I do plan on talking to the pastor about that. I know there are some other denominational members that are former law enforcement and military, so there's a resource, but we'll get into that kind of stuff a little later in the video, and I'll try to keep this short. Again, if you want, super really good information, Christian Warrior, that's the webpage, or I'm sorry, the YouTube channel you go to. So again, basic church security needs. Not attempting to just sell you on the need for security. This is your church's decision. And remember, your pastor, priest, rabbi, whatever it is that you have. I have a pastor. It may not even be their decision alone. There might be a council, a board that meets and makes these decisions. So please keep that in mind. And I'm not a lawyer. This is not legal advice. It's just food for thought. I'm just trying to keep this stuff really simple. And we're going to keep this real basic. Again, I'm not a ninja warrior. I'm just some guy on the internet. You take this for what it's worth. So what are your what are your church's needs or vision for a security team? Not every church, like I belong to a fairly small denomination, smaller building. It's not a massive mega church with multiple entrances. These are something you're going to definitely need to take into consideration. The size of the church has a lot to do with a lot. Let's talk about church security as far as it being armed, partially armed, or fully armed. Again, that's between you and your pastor and what you think your needs are. And I think there's some validity in all of the above. Not everybody on the team needs to be armed. Should anyone be armed? In my opinion, yes, but that's my opinion. This is between you and your pastor, your church, and what you think your needs are. With people being armed, there comes extra responsibilities, and we'll get into that as well. Should they be uniformed? Should be not uniformed? Should there be like vests? There is an outbuilding, a small building my agency owns, and across the street is a small church. A couple Sundays back, I saw that they had church security, and they were all wearing reflective vests that said security. You decide if you think that's something that's important to you. Should you have vests, not have vests? Should they, a lot of times it could just be people that are greeters and they have a nameplate. It could be that simple. It doesn't have to be uniform security. Because remember, you're not just security. Chances are you're going to be doing the meeting and greeting and new visitors to the church as well. You absolutely, regardless of what kind of team you have, armed, unarmed, big, small, uniform on uniform, you need to take into consideration your legal and civil issues. If you end up using force to stop somebody that has mental issues, they come into your church, they're spouting some crazy stuff, and someone on your team ends up taking them to the ground and restraining them for the police, that's a use of force. Was it objectively reasonable? This is the kind of training your people are going to have. And that requires time and energy for a training program. That means that your people have to meet on a regular basis. I would recommend a couple times a month to talk about the use of force. And it needs to be taught by somebody that knows what they're talking about, a lawyer, a seasoned law enforcement officer, use of force instructor, that kind of thing. And there's going to be some subtle difference between private security, because that's what a church security is, and law enforcement. Now, you might have some people on your team that are active law enforcement, or they're retired law enforcement, which is basically just private security. You're going to want to talk to your people about legal services and on-call legal advice. I recommend the right to bear. That I have a different, because my agency, most of our people at my agency use a different program because we're active law enforcement. But from what I understand, and this is again going back to the Christian Warrior, that guy has done some extensive research on the best programs, and he's not getting paid by anybody. If you haven't picked up what I'm putting down, that is the best channel on YouTube about anything relating to security for church. But he recommends, as of this year in 2025, when I made this, right to bear. So I would take that and run with it. You do your own research, though. You always do your own research. Again, how often do you guys train? That also comes with what kind of equipment you have. Are you going to be buying your own individual equipment? Is the church going to provide equipment? What kind of budget does your church have for this kind of things? Do you have body cameras? I would recommend them, but it's not necessary because maybe your church, like my church, does an online. Every Sunday there's online sermons and it's videoed. Of course, that's just, you can see the pastor at the pulpit doing his thing. That's what you can see. You can't see the whole chapel and you can't see the whole area. But maybe you have other security cameras that are facing into the chapel in hallways and so forth that would cover that basis for you. But body cams, not a bad idea. Is it necessarily? Not necessarily at all. I would recommend that you have a team and you travel in pairs so you can have somebody testifying that this is what I heard, this is what I saw, and you can do this for your partner as well. And then, of course, that goes to what size team do you have? All this is very generic, what I'm talking about right now. But this is definitely something you need to just not, hey, let's throw a bunch of guys together and do a security team. These are things you should be thinking about. The equipment, radios, earpieces, so you're not interfering the sermon. These are important things. What are you going to handle? What are you not going to handle? Do you have a comms person? It could be anybody. It could be a 60-year-old woman in a wheelchair, could be your go-to member of the team. That's your comms. And she's going to be the one that designated call 911 when something goes down. She has a radio and can talk to other people. You don't have to be a ninja warrior to be a member of this team, to be a successful, good, qualified individual to call the police. You also want to think about other things other than just the security of somebody coming in and causing a scene. Maybe they're mentally unstable. That tends to be the go-to situation that you're going to see. Somebody that maybe is a little off their rocker and they're coming into your church. Again, not everything is going to be a shooting scenario. Heaven forbid that actually ever happens in your church. It's very rare that that's going to happen. But, of course, you want to be prepared for that. But you should be more prepared for the individual that has mental issues. Maybe there's going to be medical issues in your church. Does your church have an AED? Do they have a med kit? Do they know where the local hospital is? You're going to be calling 911 and You're going to want to know the address, directions, and so forth. These are things that your team are going to handle, not just security, but everything that goes along with that, medical issues and things such as that. Are you going to carry things like restraints, handcuffs, flashlights, which means all the training that goes along with that kind of stuff? You can take all that in consideration, and that goes back to what does your pastor, what does your church want or not want with their team? Local law enforcement awareness. Do you have a relationship with the county or city that your church is in? Do they know that they have a team? That would be a lot of departments have a community policing program or a crime awareness program, or you could hook up with that individual officer or deputy that runs that program with that city, county, what have you, crime prevention program, and maybe they can come to your church and provide some equipment or training or awareness, very similar to a neighborhood watch type program. You want your local law enforcement to be aware of the team and what you can and can't handle. And most definitely, you need to be aware of what you can and can't handle and what your pastor or what your church wants or does not want you to do. Again, there should be a team makeup, and there needs to be a team leader. Clearly, the leader of the whole church is going to be the pastor, and he's going to tell you what he wants and doesn't want. But he's up there giving his sermon. There should be someone that's in charge if things hit the fan. There should be a team leader saying, you call 911, you do this, you do that. You should have a plan in how to deal with certain scenarios. And that goes back to how often are you training and what are you training in? And you need to have a scenario-based training program as well. And it doesn't have to be like, active shooter all the time. In fact, I would highly recommend that you guys talk about everything, not just active shooter. Will that be something you need to talk about? Sure, that's absolutely something you should be aware of. But again, medical needs, trespassing, de-escalation training. These are all the things you're going to want to talk about. But I've gone on long enough. I again highly recommend The Christian Warrior. This video was just me throwing my hat in the ring, putting in my 2 cents as somebody with lots of law enforcement experience, the kind of things you should be aware of. I'm not going to be putting out any more videos probably about team security for churches and all that. It was just me putting out a video saying, this is some things you should think about. And if you decide you want to form a church security team, I highly recommend you go to the Christian Warriors YouTube channel. And there are some experts out there that deal with church security. It's kind of a different animal than just regular civilian security. And it's kind of a different animal than law enforcement. So I hope that you guys enjoyed the video. If you want to know more about this stuff, again, Christian Warrior, everybody stay safe and take care.